Hey everyone, my name is Nick. Welcome back to Comic Culture. In today's video, we're going to go over some more tips on how to get into comic books today. We're going to be talking about your local comic book store, how it's divided up, typically speaking, and what you should expect and some other bonus tips when going into the store. So stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back. Thanks for checking out the video. If you want to, go down below and hit the subscribe button, the bell notification, and hit that like button while you're down there. And if you think of any other tips that you might want to share with me or I should share with the community, put them in the comments below because I'd be really interested in it. Also, if you want to, I'm going to put a link up in the top for my previous video, which goes over just some basic information on comic books in general, how to get into them, what to pick, how to set up a pull list, things like that. So I'll link that video up in the top corner. So check that video out too. But okay, so today's video is about the comic book store. So you decided that you want to get into comic books and you walk into a store and you might be intimidated at first. There's books everywhere. There's boxes everywhere. There's probably a guy behind the counter that's not being too friendly in some cases. Some stores are great. Some stores aren't very great, right? I'm sure we've all been to a store that the guy behind the counter is just not really attentive or almost ignores you in a way. And then sometimes you walk in and they know your first name and they run up to you and they say hi and they follow you around. So I've seen both ways. But anyway, so what can you expect when you go into any basic comic book store? So there's a few different sections and I've kind of divided it up into 5 parts. So the first section you should pay attention to is the new release wall. So the new release wall is basically what it says. It's that week's new releases. Sometimes you can find variant covers or incentive covers as well. And when I talk about variant covers, I mean, let's say a new Batman book comes out, they might have a cover and they might have a B, a C, a D cover as well from different artists. So you might see the same book over and over again. It's the same issue number. It's just a different artist that did the cover. And most of the time they're the same price, but there are incentive covers as well. So incentive covers are basically covers that if the store were to buy 10 of cover A, they would get 1 of this incentive cover. That ratio exists in many different levels, 1 in 10, 1 in 25, 1 in 50, 1 in 100. And so as you can imagine, the more the incentive is, the higher the price for that particular book will be. So on that wall, you'll find different types of books, different covers of them. Majority of the time, they're the books that came out that week, but you might also see some books that came out in the previous weeks mixed in or maybe on the side of that particular area. They're typically by publisher or maybe alphabetically. So another way you can kind of identify that wall is it takes up a lot of real estate and it's right on a wall typically. It's not going to be inside of a bin, inside of a short box, inside of a long box. If you go on Wednesdays, it might be the area where the majority of the comic book people are standing in front of because they're, checking out the variants, checking out what other books might be coming out that week. So that's a good way to help identify where that is. If you're there first thing in the morning, follow the crowd. They're probably going to the new release wall because typically that's where I go when I first walk in the comic book store in the morning on Wednesday. I go right to the new releases. The guy at the store knows my name. He knows my pull box. He knows what I got that week. He's sorting through that, trying to get it out for me. And I'm checking out the variants and then anything else I may have missed that he ordered during that week. All right, now that we got the new release wall out of the way, let's move to the second area, which I call the back issue area. So this is typically an area where the more recent issues filter in over time if they're not purchased. And you'll also find some older things in there too. 10, 15, 20 years old sometimes. And the price can go up a little bit on those books depending on what it is, if they're minor keys, which brings me to the next point. There's some really good chance that there might be some minor keys in there. New shows, new movies are popping up all the time. The back issue area is a really good place to look. You can kind of identify this area by having the short boxes or long boxes on top of tables, or there's special cabinets that are built, something like that. And it's typically near the new releases. So look for an area that is well organized, typically by, publisher or character name, and you can sort through there. You can ask your shop as well, because sometimes shops are just full of short boxes and long boxes and they have boxes on the wall. But typically speaking, your back issue area will have newer stuff. It'll have older stuff. It'll be organized in some kind of a way. They'll have stickers on them representing the price. So don't always go by the cover price in this particular area. And it's a really good place to find minor keys. So moving on from the back issue section, we have the dollar bin or discount section. So I'm fortunate enough to have a couple comic book stores that have dollar bin sections. I know some of you guys might have 50-cent or quarter sections in your stores. We have a dollar section, and it's pretty robust. You can typically identify a dollar bin section by how organized that particular area is of the store. Sometimes the dollar section is just kind of thrown around. If you have a really well organized dollar bin section at your store, I'd like to know down below. Let me know, and if you can throw a picture at me on Instagram or something, that'd be kind of funny to see. But typically all the dollar bin areas that I've seen are well traversed, right? So the boxes, if they're the cardboard slide out shelving boxes they might have, or they just might have an area where like you see nothing but the top of these flaps, sticking up everywhere. There's comic books crumpled and shoved inside of long boxes. So it could be a pretty sad little situation, but the dollar bin area is a really great place to find gaps in runs. It's a really good place to find whole runs. I remember one time I was able to find, I think about 30 or so Daredevil books. And so they were all in there. They were all just in one spot. And so I took those books right to the counter and I said, hey, can you give me a deal on if I buy this whole stack of books, which is another great tip when going to the dollar section. They want to get rid of those books. They've been sitting there forever. They're $1. They take up a lot of room. If they have to move things around, that really, wears out the back. So, selling new releases is great, but, selling those back issues and those dollar bin books is kind of, what they really want to do too, because they want to make some money on these books and they've been sitting on them forever. And then also ask your shop while you're there if they have any discount days or any sales coming up, because sometimes if they have a dollar bin section, maybe they'll mark those books down to 50 cents one weekend randomly, or perhaps on free comic book day. They have these different sales going on. So that's something that you can look forward to as well. All right, moving from the dollar or discount books, we have our higher end books. Now, I've seen shops do this a little bit differently. The shops that I frequently the most have these in a short box up near the counter somewhere visible to the cashier most times. And these books are books that are more expensive than your typical back issue books, but not quite as expensive as, say, like a wall book or a key book that we'll cover in the next section. So this is a really good place to find current trends, older stuff, some golden or silver age stuff, some bronze stuff. And what I'm referring to that as I'm referring to decades in the past, the 60s, 70s, 80s, things like that. Those books are somewhat rare, in really good condition, obviously, but also they come with a price tag just because of their age and just the way that they look. They're just awesome looking. But I always frequent that area because that's also a high rotation area. A lot of people are filtering through those and buying things. And when a shop picks up a new haul, they sometimes filter in some books in there as well. So that's a really good place to look all the time. I typically stick to the new release wall, the higher end books, and then the wall books as well, which we'll get into next. So the wall book area is a very special place. This is the area where if the shop had to pull out, 20 books of the entire collection that they have, these are the 20 that they would pull out in a fire, right? So they're typically behind the counter. Maybe they're underneath the glass and at the counter, but they're by the register somewhere. So go up to them. It's probably right behind them. It's always awkward to sit there and stare at the books and try to figure out what they actually have or what the price is. Some shops do a good job of putting the price right there so you can see. Some shops don't. They never frown when you ask to pull down a wall book. So, feel free to ask if you can see the book up close. If you want to take it out, though, I wouldn't recommend taking it out. Ask them to take it out and flip through and then ask if you can hold it, perhaps. And then when you're holding it, depending on the book, this is my personal preference, but when you have a key book down that's several $100s or $1,000, don't sit there and just start flipping through the pages and bending it and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Lay it flat. Be careful. Be gentle with it. Let them take it out of the packaging, especially if there's tape involved. And then you can just look at the book that way. This is a good place to find some graded books as well. And it's also a really good place to find new things. So, this is the highlight area. This is the showcase area for the shop. So if they get a new haul in, they're going to put the highest value books up there. A little bit of warning about if you go to a shop frequently and you just keep seeing the same wall books up all the time, it might be because of a few different reasons. One of them might be because they're just not advertised well. They don't have a lot of foot traffic, or perhaps the clientele just is not interested in that kind of a higher priced item. Or it could be because the price is just outrageous. There's many different resources you can go online and go take a look and see at what a fair market value is. I tend to use eBay if I just need a quick price but I'm sure there's tons of other options out there that you guys can link below in the comments if you have a better source than eBay. But I find eBay is a relatively good way of getting just a quick price, and filter by sold. Don't look at what people are asking for, because people could ask for anything, but just filter by sold when you're doing a search result on eBay. So the clientele just might not be looking for those particular books. Maybe they're not advertising online. Maybe the price is too high. Those are just some things to look at whenever you see a store with a giant wall of just keys behind you. It's like, wow, they have that X-Men #1, but they're asking $15,000 for it. That book is probably not going to sell ever, unless they come down drastically or some guy comes in with a whole lot of money that doesn't care. So that's one thing to look for when you're looking at wall books. All right, so we covered new releases, we covered back issues, we covered discount and dollar bins, we covered higher end books, and we covered key issues on the wall. So I'm gonna have a couple bonus tips here for you guys that don't quite fall into this, but it's gonna really help you navigate and build a relationship with your LCS, and it'll help you get some books. One thing that I do frequently is I ask the store owners or the guys behind the counter, did they get anything in recently? And what I mean by that is, did somebody come in and sell them a bunch of books, trade in a bunch of stuff that they haven't really gotten around to yet? They haven't put a price on them yet. They're not on the wall. They're not in the bins yet. And most of the time, a shop will have a stack of books or some boxes behind them. And so if you spot that, you can always ask them, hey, did you get anything in yet? And sometimes they'll let you look at it if you build that rapport with your shop. And sometimes they say, yeah, but we haven't priced it yet. We'll let you know. So ask them. Sometimes they let you see it. If you see something you like, throw an offer out. They just bought that collection. The first thing they're going to want to do is flip it fast and flip it for a good price. So, they're always looking to get rid of their books. Ask if they have any extra stuff coming in. Ask if they have anything they haven't priced yet or haven't thrown out yet. And then if it's something you like, make them an offer. And if you see something you like on the wall and the back issues, not marked yet, and they give you a price, ask if they have a layaway plan. It doesn't hurt. You can kind of just say, hey, can you throw that in my pull bin over there? I'll pay towards it once a month. Do you have any kind of program? Do you have any kind of system or expectation for a layaway system? And you guys can work out the details. It's a really good way to get that key book, but not spend so much money up front. You can whittle away at it over a few weeks or a couple months. Another way to build up credit is actually through store credit. So ask your store if they actually allow store credit. You can get that a couple different ways. You can trade in books that you no longer want. Or what I've done in the past is, if I have a particularly low amount of books that week, I ask them, hey, can I throw an extra 10 or 15 bucks into the total? That goes towards store credit. And that's a really great way to kind of build up a little bit of a buffer when you see that key issue up on there for a couple $100 and you just don't want to spend that much money. Over time, you can build up a little bit of store credit, and that's a really good way to kind of soften the blow when that key arrives and you're not quite prepared for it. And the last bonus tip I'll give you guys is ask the store if they have an interest list or some kind of list that the customers can fill out that say, hey, I'm looking for these kinds of books. So the idea would be that if the store gets a haul, gets somebody in that wants to sell them a whole bunch of books, they can go, oh, I got this great Spider-Man run. I wonder if any of my customers is looking for this particular Spider-Man book. They can go down, and if they have it organized well, they can go to their Spider-Man section, and if there's nobody there, then there's nobody there. But if your name was on that you wanted those particular runs, they have an immediate person that they can contact and flip that book they just got. So we went over the new releases, we went over the back issues, we went over the dollar bin discount issues, we went over the higher price issues, but not quite wall books, the wall books, and then we also went over some bonus tips. Ask what they got in recently. Ask if they have a layaway. Do they do store credit? What's their trade-in policies? And then do they have a wish list kind of a procedure as well? But guys, thank you for watching the video. If you have any more tips about a comic book store in general, how to navigate it, the different sections, different tips you've picked up along the way, drop them in the comments below, because I'd love to get those too, and maybe make a bonus video if I have enough of them. That would be really great. It's all about growing the community and making people aware so they don't get ripped off, so that they don't feel intimidated, just so we can get some more readers out there and we can expand this community as much as possible. I appreciate you watching the video. Stay tuned for more beginner tips from me in the coming weeks. Have a great one.